Yes, we welcome you to this online lecture. We are going to focus on hire purchase. So basically, hire purchase law in Uganda. The hire purchase law was enacted in 2009 originally, and the current one in force is CAP 72 by virtue of the revised laws of 2023. Under hire purchase, we are going to look at what hire purchase is, what what objects or items fall under hire purchase, the parties to a hire purchase arrangement, how is the hire purchase arrangement created. We are going to look at the extent of hire purchase, the obligations and rights created there under. We're also going to look at ways in which one party can go ahead and recover if at all the other party breaches the obligation or objective. We are going to look at the mechanisms of realizing the remedy sought. We are going to look at the forum of attaining that remedy. Also, it is key to understand that given that the laws of procedure dictate that one should make a plea to court, what documents will one use to make a plea to court in order to get the remedies of hire purchase? In so doing, we are restricting ourselves to the Hire Purchase Act of Uganda, CAP 72, since I am an advocate practicing in Uganda. Therefore, most of the knowledge I have is in respect of the Ugandan law. So, still locked in, we are going to discuss this segment in broad. For starters, what is hire purchase? Hire purchase is an arrangement where a person intending to attain a commodity, usually a chattel, makes installment payments to the owner in view that in the event of paying the full lump sum as agreed, that item will pass on to the person who has been paying the installments. In that regard, that is called hire purchase. There are two parties, the hirer and the owner. The owner is the one who owns the item. The hirer is the one who is paying the installments. Mind you, this has been common in Uganda, especially on purchase of motor vehicles, purchase of motorcycles. And of late, it is now taking a trend into mobile phones. Some pay daily, weekly, or monthly. So, we want to share this lecture on aspects of those people that engage in such transaction. What are their rights and obligations? What does one or the other? Looking at, it is an arrangement purely, but recalling that under the Contracts Act, any transaction beyond 500,000 ought to be in writing. Therefore, it is imperative that a party to a hire purchase arrangement concludes an agreement in writing. Upon concluding an agreement in writing, the other party pays a sum for a given period of time until an agreed sum is paid. Some call for penalties, some don't. But the court will be hesitant to interpret the agreement otherwise unless it violates the principles of law laid down in the Act. But where they do not violate, then the agreement as made shall be followed. It is also imperative to note that under such an arrangement, where a hirer has paid a given sum to the owner, the hirer is given possessory powers. For example, you go and pay, you deposit on a car, and you're given the car. You given the car not to own, but to use, as long as you're making these payments over time. As long as you're making the payments over time. So as long as you're making payments over time, you are allowed to use the property that you are paying. But what you should know at that moment in time, that property does not belong to you. Just if you should know, most times people buy cars, but the cars remain in the names of the owner until the full amount is paid to zero. That's when the transfer is changed. Therefore, ownership If it was sale of goods, would say the property and the goods does not pass at that moment in time. So if you're looking at it, the execution of an agreement is provided for under Section 3 of the Hire Purchase Act, Cap 72. We should note that much as minors are allowed to enter into contracts of needs, it is a rare scenario where a minor will enter into a contract of hire purchase. Usually, contracts of hire purchase are by adults because chances are high that all the commodities sold under hire purchase agreement are basically luxury. They are not commodities of need. Okay, so it is a rare scenario, but it can happen. It is a rare scenario, and I have not had any case in line of that to test that part. But I believe the owner of the commodity will not at any one single moment enter into an arrangement with the miner for such. Okay, we should note that, like any other agreement, it has clauses, it has chances of termination. It is bound by the general rules of a contract. That one, there are two parties. There is consideration parting from one party to the other. In this instance, consideration is money from the one hiring, but in the event that if money is paid over time, what he's hiring will become theirs, and that the person who is receiving money as the owner, he's going to receive money over time, that what he's receiving money for shall eventually pass on to the other person. Okay, the aspect of motorcycles, we have companies, Boda, Banja, and so on, that pay that. We should also appreciate that in the event that such items are concluded, it is clear that the fee must be reserved. In a hire purchase arrangement, there must be a reserved fee that separate from the installments paid. For example, they may give an example saying you're going to pay 100,000 every week for 24 weeks, or pay 300,000 every week for 36 weeks, and that payment makes a given total, and that given total will be the final price. That once you make that total, there you obtain what you call ownership rights. Well, the law establishing hire purchase was candid to enough to realize that in the event that these payments made have been made over time, but there is a sum that has been fallen short. Okay, a sum that has been fallen short. Maybe you had to pay 1 million, but you have paid 700,000 over time, and there's a fraction of 300,000 under the provisions of the Hire Purchase Act 72. There's a provision of account where the owner can, okay, where the owner can, in exercise of the agreement, go on to retrieve the item from the hirer, sell it, recover the money, and if the money is recovered is over and above what the fraction that was remaining being demanded, then that person will only take that fraction, and the excess of that will be given back to the hirer. So it is a flexible kind of approach, though in practice there are less chances that the person is going to go ahead and impound the vehicle, sell it, and get the excess and sell to you, given that people usually sell on the there's what we call forced sale value, unlike the market value in such items. Therefore, it is also peculiar that in instances where an item that has been being paid on installments has been impounded, a person should follow up to get to know the procedures of disposing that item by the owner. Example, by sale in the newspaper or by public auction. Remember, under Section 24 of the Hire Purchase Act provides for an owner to account for proceeds of the sale. So where an owner enforces a right to recover possession of goods from the hirer otherwise than by a suit, he or she shall sell the goods at the best price reasonable obtainable as soon as the reasonable and practical. So that price an account for and pay to the hirer that part that proceeds of part of the proceeds of the sale which exceed the sum of the unpaid balance of the hire purchase, and the expenses necessarily incurred by the owner in recovering